Welcome to Break It Yourself. Today, we're gonna be talking about the Apple Watch Series 4. The first things we're gonna touch on are the things that we think are most practical about the watch, and then we're gonna talk about some of the things that were more kind of a disappointment with the Apple Watch. We're gonna start off with the fitness tracking, and inside of the fitness tracking, specifically the heart rate. The Apple Watch Series 4 has a very good heart rate sensor on the underside of the watch. From my research and what I've gathered, the wrist is not a great place for a wearable to be taking your pulse, but the Apple Watch Series 4 does an incredible job of getting an accurate heart rate from the wrist. I did extensive testing comparing my Apple Watch with a chest strap heart rate monitor to see how the Apple Watch stacked up to that chest strap, and it did incredibly well on some workouts and not so good on others. The main things being, if you're doing a consistent workout where your heart rate is elevated for a while, the Apple Watch does a great job. Even really intense, it can match the highs and the lows. What it struggles to do is if you're doing very quick intervals where your heart rate is changing rapidly, that is where the Apple Watch is gonna struggle. And the reason being is that it doesn't sample as often as a true heart rate monitor. During a workout, it samples about every 10 seconds, and the chest strap that I was wearing samples every second. So I know that doesn't seem like much, but if you're looking into this watch specifically for heart rate tracking and you do interval training, then you might want to just keep that in mind, that it's not going to give you incredibly accurate data about your workout. If you're using it for something like running, where your heart rate is staying relatively consistent and maybe just increasing slowly over a long period of time, the Apple Watch is just going to do great in that aspect. The fitness tracking is really the #1 use that I have for this Apple Watch. The second thing being just activity tracking in general. I was a Fitbit user before I got this Apple Watch. I was doing the steps, doing the competitions and stuff like that, and I was very interested in how the Apple Watch would stack up. It does it very differently, and I have to say I like it a lot better than just tracking the steps like my Fitbit was doing. This is tracking your steps, of course, and your flights climbed as well if you're doing stairs, but also more so what it's looking at is it gives you these 3 rings, and it's gonna track your exercise minutes, it's gonna track the number of hours that you've stood that day, and also your active calories. Now you can set these limits when you set the watch up, and they can be changed, but it's really nice to be able to set those individual goals, and I really like it more. I think it's more representative of your actual activity instead of just looking at your steps. One of the things that I also really like are the competitions. Now on the Fitbit app, you could compete with a lot of different people. I think it limited it to something like 7 or 10 or something like that. And with the Apple Watch, you will compete individually against one other person. So you can do a bunch of competitions, but it'll only be you versus one other person. And they last for 7 days. And I really like it a lot. One of the things that people might find creepy, and you can turn this off, but if you're in a competition with someone, you'll actually be able to see when they hit a goal or finish a workout. You'll get a little notification on the watch that just says, such and such just finished a workout. And I've actually found it pretty motivating because I'm pretty competitive, and when I see that, it kind of motivates me, hey, I need to make sure I get a workout in today so that I can compete with this person and hopefully win at the end of the 7 days. And then the third most practical thing that I use the Apple Watch for, so we covered the heart rate for fitness, we covered the activity tracking, and then the third thing that I really like is just the notifications in general. So I've kind of made it a goal of mine to try to cut down my screen time on my iPhone, and I've actually found that the Apple Watch has helped me to do that. Instead of checking notifications on my phone where I might get sucked into another app and then 10 minutes later I look up and I'm like, man, all I wanted to do was check that one notification. The watch kind of helps me stay more focused, and so I'll get that notification, I can look at it, I see it, and then I can just kind of move on. I'm not tempted by those other apps. Most of my groups are on Do Not Disturb, but if I get an individual text from someone, I can just check it real quick, see if I need to respond. I can write out a response if I want, which does take a good bit of time, or I can select from a list of commonly used responses, and then it'll automatically send back if I select it. I just really like to be able to look at the notification and then try to stay off my phone as much as possible. That's for me personally. Other people may not have an issue with their phone. It's just something that I have tried and am continuing to try to cut down on. And I've actually seen a difference from before I had the watch and after, looking at my screen time on the iPhone to see it actually drop once I got the watch. I really like the notification feature. I will give you a few honorable mentions. The first one is being able to actually ping your phone if you can't find it from your watch. It's incredibly helpful and really easy to use. The other two are gonna be the alarms and the timer features. I know that doesn't seem like a big deal, but having the ability to set a timer on your watch, doesn't matter what room you're in, doesn't matter if you're home, not home, when it goes off, it's gonna be on you and you're gonna get it. And the other thing being the alarms and being able to set an alarm. You can put it on silent and have it just vibrate if you want. So if you're a light sleeper like me, it's a great way to wake up, not disturb your partner. You can just have it vibrate the watch and that'll get me up. If you're a heavy sleeper, don't worry about that. That's why it's an honorable mention. So you may be saying, big deal, right? The Apple Watch has that, but so do a lot of other smartwatches. Why should I get an Apple Watch? And I'm not telling you you should, but for me, it was kind of the culmination of all those things that set it apart. The fact that it integrates so well with the iPhone because it's made by the same manufacturer, the very accurate heart rate. I found it hard to actually find a wrist wearable that would get an accurate heart rate, and the Apple Watch has been very good. I like the individual competitions and the overall competition style of the Apple Watch. And then it's got a couple little gimmicky things as well that could potentially come in handy. Not that this should sell you at all, but it has a walkie-talkie feature. So if you have someone else that has an Apple Watch, you can walkie-talkie with them. And then also there is one thing, there's a remote for your phone. So if you set your phone camera up, you open the remote app, you can press it, take pictures from afar. That is kind of handy. Just kind of honorable mention there. Overall, I've been very impressed, especially with the heart rate tracking. I came from the Fitbit ecosystem. My Fitbit had heart rate tracking on it. It was never very accurate at all. And this has been spot on for the most part with the chest strap, which I was very impressed with. So I really, really like that a lot. So now that we've covered some of the things that I really like and some of the things that sold me on getting the Apple Watch, I want to touch on some of the things that I haven't been too impressed with. And it's really mainly around battery life. And I'm getting about a day and a half of battery life, which isn't really that big of a deal. Most of the time I charge it on my desk at work. It charges very quickly, but if I did have one knock against it, it is the battery life. I do understand that tracking workouts with GPS is gonna run the battery down significantly faster, and that's what I'm doing a few times a week. So those days that I'm exercising with the GPS, it is killing the battery pretty quick. And then the last thing that I was bummed about, and maybe this is a freak incident with me, but I scratched the screen of this watch incredibly easily. So that was a really big bummer for me. I'd only had the watch a few days. I was getting a drink at a bar. The bar was made out of concrete. I touched my hand down to the bar, grabbed the drink, came back up. I didn't like slide it or grind it or anything. And then I looked at my watch and sure enough, had a scratch. So I was disappointed that it scratched so easily. I understand it was against concrete, so that's a losing battle. But it scratched easily and the battery life is not superb. But again, overall, I really like the product. It's been great. I enjoy a lot of the features about it, especially the heart rate. I am looking for new ways to be able to utilize this watch. So if you've got suggestions on ways that you're using it or apps that you've found that help you utilize the watch more, please let me know in the comments below so that we can share that with other people as well. I'm always open to new ways to utilize this watch. Thanks so much for watching Break It Yourself. We really appreciate you. Don't forget to thumbs me up, and we'll see you next time.